assistant principal, Rabbi Grossman, our Mashgiach, Rabbi Fladen, and of course, the 5th grade Rebbeim, Rabbi Schnidman, Rabbi Porter, and Rabbi Arel, as well as the numerous parents, local Rabbanim, Rebbeim of other grades. We also wanted to thank Mr. and Mrs. Cohen for sponsoring the refreshments in tonight's evening. Every milestone celebration for a child is extremely special. Tonight's event is that much more so for a number of reasons. Anytime we make a change in any program in school, it comes with a lot of questions, a lot of debate, a lot of thought. Having more boys than ever before and less room than ever before brought up many such questions: where and when and how, and speeches, Baruch Hashem, through the efforts of many, many individuals, we're able to be here today for this momentous occasion. The milestone of starting to learn Gemara is especially significant because it's the first step for our boys in a learning that Be'ezras Hashem they'll continue their entire lives. There's a famous story that happened, it's been said over, worth repeating. Story that happened in the year 2000 in anticipation of the millennium, the year 2000. And the New York Times put out an article about the changing of the century, of the millennium. And they put out 3 front pages for the newspaper. They put out the front page of the New York Times from the year 1900, 100 years before. They put out the front page of the current year 2000, and they created a fake front page of the year 2100, what they were expecting the world to look like in 100 years from now. Just at this point, less than 80 years from now, but at that point, 100 years in the future. And as you'd expect, the article had sort of so many stories: flying cars, futuristic devices, things that maybe will exist in 100 years from now. One of the things that they had on that front page of the New York Times from the year 2100 was candlelighting. That's something that was added at a certain point into the New York Times, and they had what the candlelighting times were going to be in that year 2100. And when the editor, who was not Jewish, was asked about it, he responded, "We don't know what's going to be in 100 years from now. But one thing we do know is that Jewish mothers are still going to be lighting their Shabbos candles in 100 years from now. We know that because Klal Yisrael is eternal. They've been doing it for thousands of years, and they will continue to do so for thousands of years." It's said in the name of Rav Yaakov Emden, one of the Gedolei Achronim, that one of the greatest miracles in history is the survival of the Jewish people, survival of Klal Yisrael. We're eternal because Torah is eternal. We see the strength of Torah, we see the strength of our Masorah, specifically and so clearly through learning Gemara, which we're about to do. That learning of Torah is what we're here and what we are celebrating. We know that raising children is a partnership between the school and the home. And just like there have been so many untold levels of Mesiras Nefesh on the part of Rebbeim, teachers, there have been equally so many levels, untold levels of Mesiras Nefesh on the parts of the parents. As our guest speaker today, we have someone the opportunity to hear from one of our Rosh Yeshiva, who, as we mentioned, is here as a grandparent, parent second time around. And boys, I'm going to remind you, we show proper kavod a Rav when we introduce a Rav or a Rosh Yeshiva by standing up quietly. Everyone, please give your attention to Rabbi Palgan.
Good evening, everybody, Chashav Rabbonim, and especially the Talmidim of the 5th grade. I would like to address my comments to the boys themselves. All these people in the audience are so excited. I told you, they're so excited for you to learn the first blot of Gemara, Bez Hashem, to finish Shas. Your very first blot of Gemara. And everybody is sitting here, chalashing, excited for you, and looking at all of your faces. You're so excited to learn your first daf of Gemara. So I'd just like to talk about two people tonight, because when we know where we're going, it's easier to get there. The first story I want to tell you is about the Maram Shik. Maram Shik lived in the 1800s. The Maisa says, Maram Shik said when he was a boy, when he first started learning Gemara, probably 5th grade or 6th grade, he said as many times as he tried to learn the Gemara, he did not understand it. He could not understand what the Rebbe was saying. He had to go over it time and time and time again. And even when he chazed it, he didn't understand it. And he had to push himself. He says he felt he wasn't smart enough to be able to understand the Gemara. He had to go over it hundreds of times. The Maram Shik, at the end of his life, had written Shilas and Shuvas and commentary on all of Shas and all 4 Chalakim of Shulchan Aruch. Maram Shik. At the end of his life, this same person who said he wasn't smart enough to learn, when he was very, very old, I don't know how long he lived, but at the very end of his life, he lost his eyesight. He was still giving shir, and when the Talmidim were assembled for him to give the shir, he was quoting Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos by heart. And the people who were helping him thought, how is it possible for him to be quoting Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos if he couldn't see? So they thought maybe he could see. So they turned the Gemara upside down. And he continued reading the Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. This same person who, when he was in 5th grade, could not understand one daf, but he kept pressing and pressing. And Mayonos HaChacham, the wells of wisdom, Hashem opened up for him because he wanted it so much. But I have one more point I want to make to the boys. One more point. My father's Rebbe and the Gadol and Posek Hadar, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zeichat Tzadik Levracha. Rav Moshe Feinstein said this story about himself. There was somebody who made a siyum on a Masechta, and he on Shavuos in Yeshiva Staten Island, and Rav Moshe said, When he was 8 years old, he made a siyum on Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, 3 Masechtas. He said when he was 16 or 17 years old, in Russia, the draft to the Russian army went out, and he received a draft to the Russian army. In those days, if you received a draft to the Russian army, it's not like nowadays you serve for a couple of years. It was 25 years you had to serve in the Russian army. And it's not like there were laws of kashrus. There was nothing. He wouldn't be able to learn. He wouldn't be able to eat kosher. It would basically be the end of his Yiddishkeit. So Rav Moshe Feinstein traveled to Radin to get a bracha from the Chafetz Chaim. Wouldn't you have loved to be a fly on the wall? When Rav Moshe Feinstein went to the Chafetz Chaim, and he asked the Chafetz Chaim for a bracha, and the Chafetz Chaim said only one line to him. I'm going to say it in Hebrew, and then I'm going to translate it. The Chafetz Chaim said, Kol hamekabel al atzmo ol Torah, whoever accepts upon themselves the yoke, the responsibility of Torah, mavirin mimenu ol malchus, they remove from him the yoke of government. And that was all the Chafetz Chaim said. The Chafetz Chaim got up to leave, and Rav Moshe sat there. He's 17 years old. You can imagine he's thinking all he's doing right now is learning. At 8 years old, he made a siyum, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. By 17 years old, I'm sure he finished Shas already. What do you mean if I take upon myself all Torah, the responsibility of Torah, they'll remove from me the yoke of government? He already accepted upon himself Torah. And he realized his life was on the line, because if he goes back and gets drafted, he's 25 years in a non-Jewish environment with no kosher, no time to learn. It's 25 years. So right then and there, Rav Moshe Feinstein said the story about himself. I took upon myself that whatever I was learning already, I would take upon myself to learn with 1,000 times more intensity than I had learned until now. Do you know what 1,000 times more concentration is? He's going to learn everything with 1,000 times more from now on. Because if he doesn't, his life that he dreamed would be over. Rav Moshe says when he got back to his town in Luban, Russia, the draft notices were being taken down. The Russian government took away the draft. They rescinded the draft. Rav Moshe says he's sure that was because of what he took upon himself. And Rav Moshe said, boys, you need to hear this. Rav Moshe said that everything he became, which was the Godol Hadar and the Posek Hadar, was because of that moment at the Chafetz Chaim's house when he took upon himself to learn with that level of intensity. After I read this story, I was at Fort Lauderdale Airport. I had to drop off my nephews. My wife wanted to take, they were under bar mitzvah. My wife wanted to take them inside to the gate. And I said, okay, where will I meet you? I don't know, I'll call you. And you know how it is, if you've ever been to the airport, you just ride around and you wait for that phone call. And you figure out where to wait, and you're not sure where to wait. Do I go to the parking, cell phone area? Where's the cell phone area? And there was this blue light car with the sheriff. whistling everyone to get lost. And I had a thought. I had just read this Maisa from Moshe Feinstein. Whoever accepts upon themselves Torah, they remove from them the yoke of government. So now I'm going to try this out. I had on me a Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, a shiur from Rabbi Elchanan, which I was learning. I'm going to learn this Rabbi Elchanan with 1,000 times more intensity. And I learned, I took it out, and I zoned in to this Rabbi Elchanan shiur. I wiped everything out of my head. It seemed like a minute later, there's a bang on my door, and it was my wife. She couldn't tell you the story. My wife, and I said, "Aren't you going inside?" He says, "What do you mean? It's been 40 minutes. I'm back. It's 40 minutes later." I said, "Get out of here. It's 40 minutes?" I look up, and I see that marshal car blowing a whistle at everyone, and now he starts coming towards us. But I had been there 40 minutes. He didn't bother me, I don't think. You try it. You want to try this yourselves. I did it. And I say tomorrow morning, when you're with Rabbi Schnittman and Rabbi Arel and Rabbi Porter, when you are learning with them, you try this out 1,000 times with more concentration than you ever did. Whether you think you're the smartest or the weakest, we can become a Ramaram Shik, and we can become the Posek Adar, Rab Moshe Feinstein. Mazel Tov to everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rabbi Falgan. For the next segment in our program, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from the boys themselves. Boys had some of their own thoughts and feelings to share about beginning to learn Gemara. They were videoed earlier, and we want to thank Rabbi Amster, who spent many hours filming, putting this together for us. Please give your attention to our 5th grade boys.
I think learning Gemara is important because you get to. I think learning Gemara is important because you get smarter. Because they can solve so much questions. I think learning Gemara is important because you get to learn more laws. I think learning Gemara is important because if you don't know the answers to the Mishnah, you could just look in the Gemara for the answers. Because it explains the Mishnayos. Learning Gemara is important because it makes you a better and smarter person. I think learning Gemara is important because you get to improve your brain. Learning Gemara is important because you have to get familiar with it because that's what you're going to learn when you get older. Gemara has many halachos that apply to our own lives. Learning Gemara is important because it teaches you more answers to harder questions. Gemara is important because it is the primary subject we will be learning when we go to yeshiva. Because it makes you think better. Learning Gemara is important because if you have a question on a mission, you can just look in the Gemara and the Gemara will have answers to it.
Some people I know who learn Gemara are my grandfathers, my father, my brother, and my rabbi. My father. My two brothers, my father, and my grandfather.
My dad and my grandfather.
The person I know who learns Gemara is my uncle.
My brother in 7th grade and my brother in 8th grade.
A person I know who learns Gemara is my father.
A person I know who learns Gemara is my brother.
My father and my brother.
I know 4 people who learn Gemara. My father, my 2 brothers, and my grandfather. My father, my uncles, and my grandfathers.
The people I know who learn Gemara are my father, my brother, my grandfather, and all their babies in school. I'm looking forward to answering hard questions in Gemara.
So I actually know what I'm learning.
I'm looking forward to learning Gemara because that's the last type of Torah to learn, and now I know what it's like to learn Torah that the Rebbeim are learning who walk before me.
Finally getting my dad to let me learn Daf Yomi with him.
I'm looking forward to learning Gemara to understand questions that I don't know. To see him when we finish.
I'm excited to learn Gemara so when my father is learning in his study, I understand what he is learning. Finding out questions that I want to be answered.
I'm looking forward to learning in a deeper level of Torah.
I'm looking forward to learning Gemara to be able to answer Haschalas on my own.
I'm looking forward to learning Gemara with my father.
I feel excited and nervous about taking my learning to the next level.
I feel accomplished. I'm really excited to have all my questions answered.
I feel excited but mostly nervous because I think it's going to be hard.
I feel excited to learn Gemara but nervous because it is in a new language.
I feel excited about moving my learning to a harder level.
A little pressured but ready.
I feel nervous about moving my learning to the next level.
Nervous and excited.
When I think of Gemara, I feel excited and nervous.
Very good. It feels accomplishing. I feel very excited about bringing my learning to the next level.
My goal in learning Gemara is to finish Shas.
My goal in Gemara is to try to finish Shas.
Finish a Masechta this year for next year.
My goal in learning Gemara is to understand it.
To be good at it.
My goal in learning Gemara is to finish a Torah.
To finish a Masechta.
My goal in learning Gemara is to finish one Masechta Gemara.
My goals in learning Gemara are knowing more Torah and getting my questions answered.
My goal in learning Gemara is to finish Shas and get smarter. To finish the whole Shas.
Laws.
Rebbe Yehuda.
My brother!
Nervous.
Tricky. Learning.
Laws. Happy.
Hard work.
Geschmack. Overwhelming.
Bavu.
Going deeper.
Good.
Halacha. Daf Yomi.
Torah. Gemara.
Kindness. Steiging.
Learning.
Halacha. Torah.
Elementius.
Difficult.
Hard work.
Siyam.
Aramaic.
Daf Yomi.
Siyam.
Chagara. Rabbi.
Complicated.
Kamash Malan.
Gemara.
Work.
Challenging. Geschmack.
Learning. Halachos.
Gemara.
Rebbe.
Torah.
Hard.
Intense.
Geschmack.
Advanced.
Torah. Hard. Learning.
Learning in depth.
Learning.
Complicated. Confusing.
Work.
Challenging.
Geschmack.
Let's give another big round of applause to our 5th grade boys. Okay, and now the moment that the boys have been waiting for, that we've all been waiting for. We're going to be giving out the Gemaras to the boys. The way we're going to do this is that we're going to call one boy up from each class to receive his Gemara. Boys will be called up alphabetically. Could bring the shtenders up. We're going to have one Rebbe by each shtender. So just if you want to get a photo op, just be ready. We have Bli Ayin Hara, many boys. We want to try to keep things moving, so please be prepared. And here we go. We've got Ari Azenkat, David Asulin, and Yosef Abesera. Mordechai Benzinger, Aryeh Avisar, and Avi Alexenberg. Moshe Dov Blinder, Yochanan Shait, and Eliyahu Ben Susan. Eitan Cohen, Yitzchak Feld, and Yosef Brescher. Shragi Danziger, Elimelech Fishman, and Avior Busani. Eliezer Drieben, Moshe Aaron Hardy, and Yitzchak Korkos. Akiva Gallandauer, Gabi Heller, and Mikey Dolphin. Hananya Goldberger, Huda Yeager, and Jonathan Feldman. Menachem Greenbaum, Moshe Laredo, and Avram Fields. Daniel Itchikov, Meir Lichtman, and Ariel Fried. Akiva Joseph, Yehuda Margaliot, and Ilan Gordon. Henoch Kier, Shia Pomerantz, and Jakey Lamette. Akiva Labrie, Devere Avivo, and David Mazelton. Ellie Levine, Maishi Rosenberg, and Shlomo Palti. Alicia Nierman, Chaim Rubin, and Jojo Rabinovich. Mikey Osina, Yehuda Welton, and Elchanan Rafaelowitz. Yossi Salomon, David Zvida, and Moshe Reich. Shia Waldman and David Zvida. And Gershon Schwartz. Yosef Aaron Shapiro. and Shia Silverstone. Menachem Wiskowski and Jonathan Toledano. And Shui Zainis. Now that the boys have received their Gemaras, they're excited to show you what they can do with them. Boys have already learned that Gemara begins with Mishnayos, and they've actually already learned the very first Mishnah in Elam Mitzias. They are ready to show us what they can do with their new Gemaras. 3, 2, 1, go.
Elam Mitzios, these are the findings. Shela, which are is.
Velu and these. Chayiv lachris is obligated to announce. Elam Mitzios, these are the findings which are his.
Matzah if he finds.
Eros Mifuzaro, scattered fruit.
Mal Mifuzaro, scattered money. Kriachas Rishos Harabim, small sheaves in public property. Vegulay Develo, round cakes of figs.
Karel Sheldach, loaves of a baker. Mecharos Sheldach, strings of fish. Vachasicho Shavasar and cuts of meat. Vigile Timber and strings of wool. Halikuchen Mimdinason that are brought from the land. Take fish on and bundles of flax. No sugar and togs of purple wool.
Hooray, Elushelo, behold, these are his. Rabbi Meir, these are the words of Rabbi Meir.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol sheyesh bo shinoi, anything that has a change. Chayiv le'akriz is obligated to announce. Ketzad, how is this?
Matzah eagle if he finds a round cake.
Usocho cheres, and pottery was inside it.
Kiko Usocho meos, and open muddy was inside it. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Kokolayan Poya, any vessel is new. Ain't chayav because he's not obligated to announce it.
Let's give a big round of applause to the 5th grade boys. We were banking on a wireless mic, but the boys did an excellent job despite the technical difficulties. Once our program ends, we are going to go straight into some dancing here in the front. We're going to quickly fold up some of the chairs. We want to thank Rabbi Man for providing us with the music that he's been doing throughout the evening. After the dancing, we invite everyone to partake of some of the refreshments in the back of the room. Very special thank you to Mrs. Drieben for helping us so much with so many of the details of the setup, ordering the food, coordinating this event. And thank you so much for Mrs. Fishman for helping with the last-minute setup details today. I wanted to end our program today. Boys, listen up. I don't think you knew this one was coming. With a challenge that has become a tradition here in Torah Emes over the last few years. Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the late Mir Rosh Yeshiva, was nifter in 2012, was an American boy, just like you. Grew up in Chicago, and he worked, like Rabbi Palgan said earlier, like we heard about the Myram Shik, he worked very, very hard, and he grew so much in his learning and in his avodas Hashem, and he became the Rosh Yeshiva of one of the biggest yeshivas in the world. He often used to challenge boys. He used to visit yeshivas, whether it was his own yeshiva, he would go to other yeshivas, and he would challenge the boys to work hard, work harder than they thought that they could, really master their learning. And he created programs and incentives to get the boys motivated and excited. So I'm offering the following challenge to any of our 5th grade boys. You will, Be'ezras Hashem, be starting your first Amud of Gemara tomorrow. And Be'ezras Hashem should not take very long. A few weeks, maybe a month, you'll be finishing your first Amud of Gemara. Once you finish that first Amud of Gemara and you do some Chazara, and you really know that Gemara well, and your Rebbe will tell me that you're ready, I would like to faher you. It means give you a little oral test. You won't have to write anything down on that Amud. When you pass that test, you'll be earning yourself $10. I hope to have the opportunity to hand that $10 bill to every single one of you. And without further ado, I'm going to ask everyone to please clear out. Boys, if you could each take your chair and put it against that wall. If you could take your chair, put it against this wall. We're going to set up for some dancing.
Ashreichem, 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 Talmidei Chachamim, Shedivrei Torah Chavivin Aleichem v'yoser, Shedivrei Torah Chavivin Aleichem v'yoser. Ashreichem, 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 Talmidei Chachamim, Ashreichem. Torah Chavivin Aleichem v'yoser, Shedivrei Torah